A tariff is a tax a country puts on goods from another country. It's like a price tag the government adds to imports, making foreign products more expensive. For example, if the US puts a tariff on Japanese cars, those cars cost more for Americans. The goal? To help local companies compete by making their products seem cheaper. Tariffs affect everyone. They can raise prices on things like phones, clothes, and food. Families may pay more at the store, and businesses that rely on foreign parts see their costs rise. Tariffs can also spark trade wars. If one country adds tariffs, the other might retaliate. They're not just about economics, they're about power and policy. Today, the Supreme Court ruled against President Trump's use of certain tariffs. The court decided the president didn't have the power to create these broad taxes alone. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to manage trade and set taxes. Small business owners, hurt by the tariffs, took the case to court and won. The Supreme Court agreed. The president can't use emergency powers to bypass Congress for major trade decisions. This is a major victory for small businesses and a big moment for American government. The rules for future presidents are now much clearer. The legal fight centered on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA. Passed in 1977, IEEPA lets the president act during a real, extraordinary threat from outside the U.S. It's meant for crises, like freezing terrorist assets or stopping trade with hostile nations. President Trump used IEEPA to justify tariffs, calling trade deficits a national emergency. No president had ever used IEEPA for such broad tariffs before. Small business owners argued that trade deficits aren't emergencies. IEEPA was for war or terrorism, not economic disputes. They said the president was using a loophole to avoid Congress. The Supreme Court had to decide, does IEEPA cover economic competition? The answer, no. The justices blocked the tariffs and set a clear limit. Presidents can't declare trade issues emergencies just to sidestep Congress. This interpretation will guide how future presidents use emergency powers. The court's decision narrows what counts as a national emergency, and it puts Congress back at the center of trade policy. Small business owners argued the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to tax and regulate trade. They said the tariffs hurt their businesses, forced layoffs, and raised prices for customers. Their case was about protecting both their livelihoods and the balance of power in government. The government argued the president needs broad authority to act fast in the nation's interest. They claimed unfair trade practices threaten American jobs and industries, justifying emergency action. The White House said waiting for Congress could be too slow in a fast-moving world. But the court sided with the business owners. Emergency powers can't be used for regular trade policy. The decision protects against one person having too much power over the economy. It reinforces that real emergencies, not routine trade disputes, are needed for such presidential action. The ruling is a win for small businesses and for the constitutional balance, and it sets a precedent for future conflicts over presidential power. This legal battle started years ago in a lower court. Small business owners filed their lawsuit in the U.S. Court of International Trade, challenging the president's use of IEEPA. Against the odds, they won. The judge ruled the tariffs illegal. The government appealed, keeping the tariffs in place while the case moved up. The appeals court also sided with the business owners, making the case even more significant. The government's last hope was the Supreme Court, which rarely takes such cases. But because this was about presidential power and the Constitution, the court agreed to hear it. The journey was long and uncertain, but the business owners persisted. Their fight reached the nation's highest court and changed the law. The Supreme Court's decision is the final word. It's a story of ordinary people challenging the government and winning. Their persistence reshaped the rules for everyone, and it shows how the legal system can check presidential power. The Supreme Court's ruling shifts power back to Congress on trade. For years, Congress let presidents act quickly on trade, but now the court has set limits. Major, long-term economic policies like tariffs must go through Congress. This means more public debate, hearings, and votes, making the process slower but more transparent. The decision could spark new congressional involvement in trade issues. It also signals courts will scrutinize future uses of emergency powers. Presidents must now justify emergencies more carefully, knowing the courts are watching. The president still has some trade authority, but the boundaries are clearer. This ruling redraws the lines of power and strengthens checks and balances. It's not just about tariffs, it's about how government works. The decision reinforces that no branch has unlimited power. Congress now has more leverage in shaping trade policy, and the American system of government is a little more balanced. The Supreme Court's decision shook global financial markets. Stock prices jumped, and the US dollar shifted as traders reacted to the news. The end of tariffs removed uncertainty for businesses trading across borders. International companies exporting to the US cheered. Their goods just got cheaper for Americans. Global trade is expected to pick up, boosting the world economy. In the US, companies relying on imports are relieved, costs drop, and prices may fall for consumers. But American industries once protected by tariffs, like steel and aluminum, now face tougher competition. Some workers may worry about jobs, while others see new opportunities. The biggest change, less uncertainty. Businesses can plan ahead without fear of sudden tariffs. Trade policy changes will now be slower and more public thanks to Congress's renewed role. Investors value this stability, even if markets are volatile at first. The long-term effect? A more predictable, stable global market, and a new era for international trade. With the Supreme Court's decision, American businesses that import goods see immediate relief. Tariffs are gone, costs drop, and prices may fall. Consumers could benefit from lower prices and more choices, but workers and industries once protected by tariffs like steel face new challenges from foreign competition. The government may need new ways to support these industries and their employees. The debate over free trade versus protecting local jobs is far from over. The president can't use IEEPA for tariffs anymore, so future trade policy will require more cooperation with Congress. Expect more negotiation, debate, and public discussion on trade. Lawmakers will play a bigger role in shaping America's economic future. This case shows how a few determined business owners can change national policy. It's a reminder that presidential power has limits and that the courts can enforce them. The ruling will affect prices, jobs, and America's place in the world. As businesses and workers adapt, all eyes are on Washington's next move. The story of these tariffs ends here, but the future of American trade is just beginning.